The pyramid base group. The base group of the pyramid, real lives shared struggle. The base group. Here I was at the base, just another employee and a consumer of goods and services. My primary contribution was at my job, and beyond that my relevance diminished. Outside of work and perhaps family and friends, I was invisible. This isn't unique to me. Many people share the same characteristics. Final consumers and employees of large corporations or mid-level establishments. The base group is diverse, including individuals from low to high middle income levels. Amazingly, I found that many managers, especially mid-level managers, also fell into this category. Despite higher pay and respect, mid-level managers primarily oversee people and resources, making them functionally similar to regular employees. They had limited powers and no significant influence over the company's strategic direction compared to regional managers or CEOs of the company. The vision and direction were left to the company's executives. So, even managers were essentially just well-paid employees and consumers. We all consumed products from the trapezium and isosceles groups. It dawned on me that, unlike the owners and major shareholders of the companies I worked for, we were all essentially laborers, whether specialized or not, and our pay would never be enough, no matter how long or hard we worked. Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, once joked that even at $2,000 per hour, an employee working 40 hours a week would need 2,000 years to earn $8 billion, which is less than 10% of his $425 billion net worth at the time. If you do the math, that means it would take 250 years of working 40-hour weeks to earn $1 billion, assuming you saved every dollar you made. Do you know 10 people who make $2,000 per hour? Or anyone who has saved everything they've earned for the past 250 years? I don't. This was because the pay was either designed to be tantalizingly small, enough to keep us coming back for more, or taxes were structured to keep us within a system that served the government. It wasn't necessarily a setup or an intentional design, but once I saw the pattern, it certainly felt like one. The purpose of the base group. For me, the base wasn't just a position in the workforce. It was the target market for the goods and services provided by those in the higher tiers. I was part of the pool of employees that big corporations hired to fill roles that kept their businesses running. Even if I wasn't employed by them, I was still a consumer of their products and services. In other words, I existed as both a worker and a paying customer, a hand to build their vision and a wallet with a number attached to it. I had to admit, there was something comforting and reassuring about knowing these companies were working to make life more convenient for me and others like me. In return, I played my part in keeping their dreams alive. At least I was good for something. But despite this, I often felt trapped. My salary could remain stagnant while they manipulate the prices of goods and services, with no real concern for whether I got a raise or how inflation affected me. My only leverage was to quit, negotiate overtime, or find additional work to supplement my income. I'm not seeking pity or sympathy, just stating an observation. These corporations controlled both the job market and the consumer market, and I noticed that most people in my position were their primary customers. Unless they planned to sell or rent their products to aliens, we were their only real market on planet Earth, or we were enablers of their market. Another realization hit me. The companies that employed me and those that sold me goods and services were often separate entities, yet they all belonged to the same category, those who held the wealth and power, the isosceles group. They didn't need to conspire to control people like me. The structure of the system already ensured that we remained in place, small business owners. Within the base group, there are some members who are not just consumers or employees but also business owners. These include small businesses, startups, and local shops such as tea shops, restaurants, coffee shops, and other small businesses within our communities. These are typically businesses that are not nationally recognized or on a global scale like large companies or franchises. This subgroup is one step away from being solely employees themselves, and they are vulnerable to events such as a pandemic or a severe economic downturn, which could abruptly halt their operations and leave them dependent on a job, just like me and others in the lower and mid sections of the base group. Even within the base group, a hierarchy exists: the unemployed at the bottom, workers in the middle, and small business owners at the top. This realization unsettled me, as it suggested that others might envy or even rob someone like me with a modest budget, especially if they had little to their name. I suspect the struggle is not solely between the base and upper tiers but also within the base itself. Although crimes such as break-ins, assaults, robberies, thefts, and drug-related activities are common in low-income neighborhoods, their occurrence still took me by surprise. This concern grew when I considered the small business owners in my neighborhood, who, despite being part of the base group, occupy the top rung and would be targeted by lower members of the group. I understand that robberies happen, but the idea that small businesses are typical victims is particularly worrisome. These entrepreneurs have worked tirelessly to build their businesses to support themselves, and the community, and having them robbed is not the way to show any form of gratitude or acknowledgement. My apprehensions were confirmed 6 weeks later after writing, when a family-owned grocery store experienced its first break-in just 5 months after opening. While such incidents are not uncommon, I now have a clearer understanding of why they occur. I believe the perpetrators, perhaps deterred by the heavy security of big-box stores, targeted a local establishment within their own reach. Dependency on basic necessities. The inherent hierarchy within the pyramid has been an eye-opener, and this structure highlights our collective dependency on essential needs such as food, transportation, and housing. Not in a bad way, but as I saw it, it was simply a reality of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Our salaries wouldn't allow us to seek any self-actualization in the hierarchy, but our hope would be at least to satisfy our primary needs first. In addition, we were now dependent on those above the base to provide these things for us, not because we couldn't do it ourselves, but because the groups above had figured it out first, or they had the resources and made competition tough for the rest of us. I think we get so caught up in working for them that we have little time to think about anything beyond work, and to worry about the rising costs of things in the market. The truth is, when you work all day, you don't come back home trying to figure out how to solve other people's problems. You just want to eat, sleep, and rest. In a way, the upper groups controlled the work-life balance of the base group, though perhaps unknowingly, or maybe not. The easiest thing for me to do was find deals and be content, rather than resort to depression meds and adding more burden to society. Yes, such a realization can be troubling and may cause you to promptly reevaluate your personal goals and purpose. On the bright side, the other groups were generous enough to pay me sufficiently to cover my basic needs, with a little extra to keep me motivated. Also, there were PTOs, pay raises for long-term commitment and meeting performance targets, vacations, and other perks to keep me happy. And of course, there was the American dream, a vision to strive for, the belief that if I worked hard enough and dreamed big enough, things would eventually fall into place. What I enjoyed most about my research on how to get by on a limited budget was discovering how many sales stores held each year. I hadn't realized there were so many. These sales kept stores vibrant, helped the year feel dynamic, and offered a fresh look while signaling the changing seasons. I won't burden you with every specific sale I found, but it's worth noting that most stores host at least 2 sales each month. I typically waited for Black Friday, but my research revealed that stores advertise various sales throughout the year, and you can discover them by visiting. Additionally, these discounts are often offered toward the end of each season to make space for new products. You won't believe it, but some suppliers do not want unsold items sent back to them because of shipping cost or other logistics or company reasons. Retailers often lack storage space for old inventory when new stock arrives, hence the flood of irresistible sales phrases designed to capture our attention and move products fast. Here are some typical examples. Flash sale, limited time offer, get it for less, more for your money, buy one. Get one free, stretch your budget, 0 down, 2 for the price of one, 50% off everything. Unbeatable prices, final clearance, everything must go. Today only, massive markdowns, deals too good to miss, price slash frenzy, stock up and save. The sheer size and significance of the base. The other thing I noticed about the group I was in was its sheer size. Why was I surprised? The base of the pyramids in Egypt is massive and strong. You need a solid foundation to support what's on top. But was this natural or just a coincidence? An inverted pyramid would collapse without external support. Newton's first and third laws alone cannot keep this structure stable. However, when the base is at the bottom, everything works out well naturally. The size of the base comes with the burden of untold weight, and it's expected to cushion the effects of changes at the top. He that is down needs fear no fall. John Bunyan. In our situation, the base deals with the effects of natural disasters, tax increases, inflation, societal imbalance, and other circumstances beyond human control disproportionately, compared to the other groups. Unlike a traditional pyramid, our pyramid's base can expand, much like the mud-covered station wagon in Mile 81 by Stephen King, absorbing individuals from the upper groups when misfortune strikes, or take in those who can't withstand the surge of human greed and conflict at the top. Because of its size, I see this group of people as dispensable, more like pawns on a chessboard. I say this respectfully, but a simple ad on Indeed.com could replace me in a matter of days or weeks compared to the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. In your case, the timeline may vary depending on your skill set and relevance, but in the end, we are all replaceable. Particularly as we age and eventually retire, businesses must continue to exist. In simple terms, the need to hire new workers and to keep the business running can be thought of as a mathematical constant, while the worker is simply a variable that can be swapped out with time. The market. It also became clear that size is important from a business perspective. The volume of sales or services is essential for most companies, and the size of the base group contributes significantly to the market and success of the isosceles and trapezium groups. An individual's wealth creation within the pyramid is largely dependent on the volume of sales and the quality of products sold or service provided. In fact, the visibility and persistence of a product, driven by effective marketing and advertisement, directly translates to sales for the company. Let me throw some quick statistics at you for a moment. Walmart serves over 240 million customers globally each week. Amazon typically sees over 160 million monthly shoppers online, and Starbucks gets around 100 million visits per week. CVS, the retail pharmacy giant, serves about 4.5 million daily customers, and Wells Fargo estimates around 33 million digital active customers. If I were in business, I would gladly welcome these numbers and leverage the opportunity. Certainly, big companies scale up by casting wider nets to bring in more people and profits. And there is no better place to attract customers than the base group in most societies. As of 2023, there were 22 million millionaires in the United States, making up about 6.6% of the population. So from the statistics I threw at you, it is easy to deduce where Walmart and others are seeing all these numbers and why they are so many sales year-round. Similarly, most governments in developed countries rely on loan repayments and taxes from their citizens to meet their obligations, and the volume of people paying these taxes is crucial to them. Typically, this comes from the large number of workers in the base group. This group is primarily made up of employees, and the bulk of them are the consumers of goods and services, which in turn generate taxes. Therefore, even governments would encourage businesses to expand and hire more people from the base group, who would then pay taxes to the government. Taking it a step further, I reviewed the population of most countries, and from my understanding, this trend held true. The base group comprised millions to billions of people relative to the other groups. The base is typically the largest population segment in most countries. It dawned on me that if the top group could get 1,002 people from the base group to subscribe to a service or purchase a product for just $2 or more, they could generate millions in a matter of days, weeks, or at most, a month. I know this is easier said than done, but it's satisfying just to think of it. Though this concept differs from selling luxury products to a few, it also works, and top companies use it all the time. If they scaled up the product or service to an affordable price, it could generate a substantial amount of revenue and create a steady income stream. Clearly, what you need to become a millionaire is in the hands of others. All you need is something of value they would want to exchange for their cash. Those in the isosceles group understand this well, the price model. I quickly visited the stores in my neighborhood and found products that were priced under $20. I observed the carts of most shoppers, and yes, their carts were filled with these items. I wondered if this was happening in every store. Again, I made visits to many stores and even drove to another city 50 miles away, and the observation was similar. Using myself as a point of reference, I realized I could casually spend small amounts, ranging from $1 to $30 or even $50, on essential items without much consideration, because in my head it won't significantly affect my financial situation. But we all know things add up fast, even small things like drops of water. For most of the stores I visited, the products were typically within that price range, and they were flying off the shelves, as you would expect. Members of the isosceles and trapezium groups were well aware of this price model. They kept basic items priced between $2 and $25, including monthly subscriptions to services like Netflix or memberships to stores like Costco. A simple Google search reveals that over 50% of Walmart's revenue comes from groceries, which are usually within that price range I mentioned. General merchandise accounts for about half that number, and the majority of the sales for general products roll in during events like Black Friday and other holidays, where items like TVs, tires, and other major purchases are discounted. The upper groups seem to have it all figured out, even knowing my purchasing habits better than I did, and created targeted sales to keep me coming back. As it turns out, humans repeat their behaviors often enough for the top groups to know what we'll buy, when we'll buy it, and at what price. It got so precise that apps started sending me deals under $50, perfectly aligned with my browsing history. This tech giants and their algorithms had us all figured out. We used their applications to search for items, and our phone and computer's audio and video functions were at their disposal. And we had no idea who knows our location or who was listening to our conversations or using our cameras. Before you finish talking or even thinking about an item, the data machine magically starts showing you ads for that item and a range of related items. In the future, I believe, the devices would read your thoughts before they come out of your mouth or ink on a screen. There was more at play here than just the prices. I observed that the cost of these so-called affordable items added up quickly when it was time to pay. Almost like magic, the grocery prices of $3.99, $12.99, and $17.95 for many of the items I bought added up to over $200 plus taxes when it was time to check out. Initially, when I added these items to my cart, they seemed cheap and affordable in my mind, but the total quickly added up. A friend tried this recently and was shocked when the total came to $327.34. She isn't alone in this. Many others in the base group across the country were exchanging this range of cash for goods. I couldn't stop there. I had to find out what happened in other stores I didn't shop at because of the prices. The trend was similar with members of the trapezium group. The difference I noticed was that they could afford to spend larger sums on the same necessities, albeit in smaller quantities. While I hesitated at the point of purchase, members of the trapezium group added items to their carts without any consideration. They needed it, no questions asked, no debates. And like I observed, they quickly realized how everything added up at the counter. The other difference was that individuals in the middle and isosceles groups didn't flinch when paying because they could afford it. They just swiped their credit cards and that was it. They had the money or credit to make these purchases, so they worried less about the total. It didn't take long for me to realize that the trapezium and isosceles groups understood that the easiest way to get out of the rat race is by collecting from a large number of people, rather than laboring many years for periodic salaries. They had devised and created companies that allowed them to collect from others in exchange for goods or services. Years of laborious work for pay didn't work for them. Instead, they spent years figuring out how to establish businesses that would collect from others. I suppose they all knew that profits are better than wages. Come to think of it from their perspective, the minimum wage grind and the excitement I felt over the few increases on my paycheck seemed far too slow and would only afford me a limited life. I mean, which would you prefer? Laboring until retirement for paychecks or providing a basic necessity to millions of people and still living a comfortable life? Choices and paths. As I stood in the store, I felt like I had chosen a different path from the people around me. While many of us spent most of our time working to make the businesses of the higher groups thrive for a salary, they spent their time brainstorming ideas and finding ways to market them. In the end, I had chosen the safety net of a steady job, driven by passion, while they took risks to get more out of life. When we came to the marketplace, I was buying from them, while they were, in a sense, buying from themselves or from their profits. I wouldn't exactly give a big high five to the universe for my luck, but I'm grateful things turned out the way they did, and I've come to realize what's really going on. Still, I knew there was more to uncover about myself and how I ended up here. How did I end up in this group, and why was I just now coming to terms with it? Had others already figured out this structure and I was just stating the obvious? Or I was the new kid on the lower floor, wondering how and why. But first, I wanted to see how things worked on the upper floors, those I wasn't a part of, and get a glimpse into their world. Moving beyond the base. My experience at the base of the pyramid revealed both the vulnerabilities and opportunities inherent in this position. While the system often feels rigged against us, understanding its mechanisms can empower us to think differently. By leveraging the sheer size of the base group and identifying ways to provide value within it, there is potential to rise above the confines of this layer. Take Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, as an example of a former member of the base group. Starting with a $5,000 savings account, she identified a gap in the market and built a billion-dollar empire. Blakely's journey from selling fax machines to becoming a self-made billionaire showcases how innovation and resilience can transform one's position within the pyramid from a salary to a profit structure. The challenge lies in stepping away from the safety net of employment and embracing the risks and rewards of creating something that others would willingly support. Realizing this empowered me to reframe from my own approach and seek a path beyond the base of the pyramid, not just for myself, but as an example for others in similar position. The power of collective action. What about using unions to fight for better pay and benefits? Collective action is powerful, and unions have historically helped base group members secure better wages and working conditions. However, the hierarchy I observed is deeply entrenched and difficult to challenge with occasional work stoppages alone. But I wonder if they can do more than fight for wages. Can they learn from the isosceles group and create something that employs instead of seeking employment? They can't always rely on their employers to do the right thing or treat them fairly. Business is about profit, and companies aim to grow that number every year, something you can't change. Companies like Costco has been different and has demonstrated that treating employees well can still lead to profitability. By offering fair wages and benefits, Costco not only retains a loyal workforce but also earns consumer trust, proving that businesses can thrive while uplifting those at the base. The stories of individuals and organizations finding ways to rise and help others rise are beacons of hope. They remind us that while the system may seem stacked against the base group, change is possible through innovation, strategy, and collective effort. Understanding this dynamic is the first step toward transforming our place within the pyramid and inspiring others to do the same.